Who disrupts my coronation?
Everyone has been destroyed because of this freak. I won't allow it! These babies just saved this lame fest party!
Guys, what's going on? You are listening to This Week in Geek.net. I'm your host, Mike the Birdman, and if you're Canadian, happy Victoria Day weekend. You're probably hearing this on Monday, so hopefully you had a safe weekend and had yourselves a wonderful day. Hopefully today it's a day off for you, and you're enjoying time with your friends, family. You're out there playing with your dog, your cat, which I've seen a lot of cats on leashes, by the way, which kind of brings me to my next thing. I'm outside now, but I'll talk about that in just a moment. But I'm joined by my compatriot from the lovely city of Kitchener, Ontario, Canada.
Alex, the producer.
I'm back, I'm outside, and I've been outside almost this entire week. Wheelchair came back on Tuesday, and the second that happened, I forgot you and Aaron. I'm sorry. And yeah, I was like, boom, out of here, baby. And I've been to the movies almost every single day this week, which is awesome. People in the community are like, nature's healing. Mike's outside. It's amazing. Like I had people ask me like, where were you? Like, did you die? I'm thinking, no, I didn't die, but you may have seen me in the news recently. So that was a trip and a half. I'm so thrilled to be back into my community. So big thank you to everybody who said something on social media, who were like just messaging me constantly. I got so many people offer. Actually, Alex, I never told you this. I had a friend of mine who was willing to rent me a wheelchair. Because he was like, dude, I can't stand to see you like this. We need to make some calls. And my just huge shout out to my buddy Calvin and his wife Dean for willing to offer that. He's an electrical engineer, so we were literally pulling the design documents for my wheelchair. We're like, all right, where did this go wrong? And from what we can tell, I cannot 100% definitively say this, but it looks like it was damaged during when I got stuck in the snow. There was a short and we were creating an arc. So it fried my motor. And when I got my replacement in the middle of April, it fried that motor within minutes. So it was just huge thing. Something like $10,000 American went into repairing my chair. Literally, Alex, it's like, what's that thing called? The ship of Theseus or whatever? How much until you replace it?
Yeah, I believe that's what it is. Where it's they kept replacing piece by piece, and then there's the question of is it the original ship once every part has been replaced?
Yeah. So the only thing that is original on my chair now is the frame and the control unit. Literally. Everything else has been rebuilt, replaced, and renewed.
Is it not cheaper just to get a new chair at that point?
That's what I was starting to wonder. I'm like, guys, should we just contact the factory and just say, hey, man, what's on the assembly line at this point? Like, it got so nutty.
Because, like, if it's like $10,000 US to repair it, and those
only
chairs
cost 13.
I was going to say the cost, like, I know that the cost went up, like, they are generally between 8 and 12 for a new chair. It's like on the low end, you could have almost got a used chair that was in better condition to cover until you could get a new one.
Yeah, it was so crazy, but it was like, I was so grateful. The tech brought it over, and it's funny. So when my chair was taken on Easter Monday, like when it was physically taken out of my apartment, I was recording commercials for you. and the podcaster or the tech came to the door, and I'm literally just finishing this long, like 8-minute take of some review that I was doing. And I was like, and that's my review for what the fuck? Who knocked at my door? And he comes in sheepish. He's like, I'm really sorry. So this time he texts me. He's like, hey, can I come over? I know you're podcasting. And I'm thinking, okay, the fact that you recognize that this is a work day for me, thank you so much. And thank you for asking. So big shout out to that technician for being aware of what we
Well,
do.
and it's never like you weren't upset with the tech. It's not his fault.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, just the fact that I blew an 8-minute take and I was on a really good flow. Cause like I do things like old school radio where I'm like, all right, the whole take is shit. I'm just gonna redo it. I'll restart a 10-minute take if I don't like 30 seconds. I don't like to clip it because to me I have to remember exactly where I left off. What was my intonation? I don't want to have to edit. I'd much rather take 10 minutes and redo it than take 15 minutes editing it to get something that's maybe half as good.
Believe me, going back to when we were recording in person, if only the listeners could tell how many times you talked and fuck, I'm starting over again and again
Yeah.
and again, and eventually sometimes spiraling into God. It's like take a break.
Yeah, like I am that old school perfectionist, and it's kind of just that's how my radio journey has gone since like 2007. And yeah, like again, now that I'm back out and chatting with people, they've been wondering what I've been doing. I'm like, well, I've been doing a lot of podcasting, and a lot of people are asking me about, the podcast recently. And yeah, a lot of people are surprised we've been around since 2007. Actually, I had a editing job for a group out of Saskatchewan or Alberta this past spring, back when my chair was damaged, so I had a lot of free time on my hands. And they're like, yeah, we've actually heard of you, can you be our podcast editor? And it was a nice couple week gig that I did. It didn't really lead anywhere, but hey, that's up to them to produce it. I'll make the sauce, it's up to you to apply it to the meat. So but anyway, other than that, though, I guess for me, this week has been spent a lot on being at the movies. I've seen Sinners. I saw Clown in a Cornfield. I saw Fight or Flight. As of this recording, I'm going to go see Final Destination Bloodlines. And I'm probably going to go see... Oh, and I saw Thunderbolts finally. That was my first date movie with me and Blair of the year. And I'm going to go see Mission Impossible later on this week. And I want to say there's something else coming out I was going to go see, but I don't recall what, so I'm sure it'll come to me. And as for video games this week, Doom Dark Ages came out. We didn't get it for review, though it was requested. Now it's out on Game Pass, so what's the point?
That's briefly, that's what I spent my week doing basically in my free time.
Is it fun?
Yes, I beat it.
Okay. Wow, you in a Doom game? That's surprising.
You can adjust the difficulty around a fair bit. Like there's like not that it's like it's too easy or anything, but there's accessibility options to really customize everything to yourself.
Mhm.
And I didn't collect everything because there's like missables and collectibles in certain areas, but there's 22 levels, and it probably 10-15 hours at least to beat,
That's
like
not bad.
as a single, like, you know what I mean, for the single player. Just like it would be a lot more difficult if you're collecting everything or at a much harder difficulty, but like
Mhm.
it is maybe one of the like most optimized video games for PC I've ever played in the modern era.
Oh,
Like
wow.
it just worked on my computer. Like you need to have like decent hardware, but it just worked. And I only had like a frame rate drop in the last two levels, which makes sense because it's like a bazillion things on screen. But
Mhm.
like for the most part of it, it was like locked 60. Really, really good experience. Like that. So I spent like, multiple days playing that, plus a few other things. So that was basically me. And I went and saw, Final Destination with some family members. And that was basically, my week, other than the fact that it got balls hot, dude, outside.
Yeah, which sucks.
So I had to put the air conditioner in, or at least one of them in the bedroom. And I was thinking of putting the other one in the living room, and apparently this week's going to be cold again. So it's like, what
Yeah.
the hell?
Yeah.
But anyway,
Please make up
sorry.
your mind.
Sorry, go back to you. That's basically been my week, but go back to you.
Yeah, so the only other thing I've been doing for video games, I didn't get this for review, but I'm kind of glad I didn't, so I can take my time playing it. I've been playing the MechWarrior 5 DLC for Ghost Bear, which is my favorite clan. Been having a lot of fun with that. Having the elementals is a new thing. The only thing that's, I guess, a maybe complaint about this from Piranha Games is there is a difficulty spike even on really easy. If you don't come into the mission prepared with the right mechs, it's really easy to get overwhelmed. And if you're not planning your shots on your mech builds, it can really affect it. But it's still a lot of fun. For this is like easily like an A, maybe a double A at most. They get so much out of the budget. Like the cutscenes in this look outstanding. Like MechWarrior 5 Clans was one of my games last year that I recommended for holiday gift guide. And MechWarrior's DLC, if you already have this game on Steam or PS5 or wherever you have it, the Ghost Bear DLC is really worth it. Other than that, I also got Capcom Fighting Collection, so you might hear that review later on this week. I am going to throw that in one of Alex's Turtle Treasures. I know for reviews for me this week, Warner Brothers and Cartoon Network sent over Ben 10, the complete series. That's like the TV, movies, and like everything. I didn't realize how huge this franchise was. But that's really cool. So that'll be in this show this week. What else do we got coming up from you this week, Alex?
I have some stuff from Turtle Beach. I'm not sure the exact order of when it's coming out, but some stuff from Turtle Beach. I've got some games, and it. I have to check embargo dates on some stuff, but there's a pretty decent variety. I got some movies and stuff coming too, but for sure in this show there'll be something from Turtle Beach.
Excellent. All right, there, guys. So we're going to take a break here on This Week in Geek.net. Let's dive into the news that happened around the big blue marble this week. So we're going to, without any further ado, we're going to check out one of Alex's reviews from Turtle Beach. And when we come back, we're going to dive into the news. I've been Mike the Birdman. He's been Alex the producer. We'll be back, guys, right after this, only on This Week in Geek.net.
Summer is fast approaching, and our friends over at Turtle Beach have sent us a few products for the Nintendo Switch to check out for review. This is right as the Switch itself is in sort of its sunsetting motion before the Switch 2 comes out. But as we know, Nintendo has announced that basically almost all, if pretty much not every, accessory and gamepad and everything that worked with the Switch 1 will work with the Switch 2, and we'll have to test some of this stuff out on that as it comes out. But right now, for the Nintendo Switch, there are brand new products from Turtle Beach coming out. We'll be talking about a couple more of them later on, either this week or next. But first and foremost, I wanted to talk about the Rematch wireless controller. There's a couple versions of this out. There's one that is a Invincible Star themed one, but what I received was the Mario controller, which is, it's a really cool glow in the dark thing too, but it's got this sort of pastel bluish color accents to it, and it's Invincible Mario, I believe is what the model is called. But we've reviewed a few controllers from them in the past. This is after the merger of PDP into Turtle Beach, so it sort of has the aesthetics of the PDP designs, but with a little bit, modern flair, and probably the build quality we're known for with Turtle Beach. But what we have here is a wireless controller with pretty substantial battery, actually. You're looking at, it says up to 40 hours. I've done some extensive testing with it, used it to play a bunch of games the last few weeks, and I would say, yeah, that's probably right around the ballpark. I think I got about 30, 35 before I got pretty low battery on it, and that was with, Rumble on and just, playing pretty extensively. Now, what is good to note is that it does have Rumble. Some of their controllers in the past and some third-party controllers haven't, but it does have Rumble. It's pretty substantial. You can really feel it go. Comes with a 3.3 foot, I think just a little over 3 feet, USB-C charging cable. It's a completely wireless controller, wireless connection. It does allow the system to wake from sleep, which is great. Not a lot of controllers did that, so it behaves pretty much like a regular Pro controller in that sense. It works with pretty much every Switch, Switch Lite, Switch OLED. Again, we'll have to test how things work with the Switch 2 in a few weeks when that comes out, and I'll probably give an update for it. But I can say it's an aesthetically pleasing controller, pretty smooth on the top. The only thing I would have said is maybe having a little bit of like a rubberized grip or texture would have been a little better if you're somebody who has sweaty hands, which it can happen depending on the play sessions that you're doing, but I would say overall it has a really good feel in the hands. The analog sticks have a responsive motion to them. There's just enough give behind it that it's not like you're going to be wildly like going too fast left and right when you're controlling it. The buttons have a nice clicky feel to them. They are not really mushy at all in comparison to other controllers, but also they're not like overly like mechanically feeling clicky. It has a pretty good balance of in between there. As far as the shoulder buttons and everything, it feels fine. I didn't encounter anything with it that I would say would be, awkward or different. It does have sort of back paddle buttons near where your, I guess, ring fingers would be, or your index fingers, depending on how you hold the controller on the back. That can be mapped for quick actions and things, which is good. I'm glad that they're including that on these controllers, because it's something you usually only find on more premium controllers. I would say the actual charging, it was pretty fast to charge up from almost empty, so you're not going to really have to worry too long about leaving it plugged in. You're not going to have to like plug it in for hours and hours on end. It seems to get a pretty quick charge as well, which is solid overall. I would say it's one of the better looking and feeling controllers that's out there, and coming in pretty hot when it comes to close to a new console launch. Again, it's not officially licensed for the Switch 2, but it should be backwards compatible. With the console should be backwards compatible with the controllers. We'll test that later on. As it stands now, if you're somebody who is on the fence but you still got an OLED or a Lite, and you're thinking, oh, should I wait and figure out if I should buy it, if I'm buying a Switch 2, I would say that it's very likely going to work with it. And if you're somebody who still has a Switch, and you're going to continue to use a regular Switch, it is one of the best third-party controllers I've used on it, and I would highly recommend.
The Prime Minister of Sweden visited Washington today, and my tiny little nipples went to France.
Gossip, rumors, panic in the streets. We're lucky.
This Week in Geek
News.
Welcome back to This Week in Geek.net. I'm Mike the Birdman. He's Alex the producer. It's time to break down some things that happened around planet Earth this last week. This story might be a little bit old, at least from the source, but I do think this is definitely worth talking about. So this story comes from multiple outlets, but we are reporting specifically from GameRant.com, and this is the rumor that Chrono Trigger's creator is, quote, beginning to contemplate a remake. One of the co-creators of the classic SNES RPG Chrono Trigger, Yuji Horii, shared that he is, quote, beginning to contemplate a remake after seeing how many fan requests the game had received. Horii's statement came after rumors of a Chrono Trigger remake circulated on social media following a convention in Naples he was at. Originally released on the Super Nintendo in 1995, Chrono Trigger was designed by the dream team of Horii, Final Fantasy series producer Hironobu Sakaguchi, and the late Dragon Ball manga artist Akira Toriyama. Chrono Trigger is a time-traveling adventure that sees characters like Chrono, Marley, and Luca explore different historical periods in a desperate quest to avert a world-ending calamity. Chrono Trigger was praised for its turn-based battle system, multiple endings, iconic soundtrack composed primarily by Yoshinori Matsuda, with contributions from Noriko Matsuda and Final Fantasy composer Norinobu Uematsu. Although recent rumors of a Chrono Trigger remake have since been attributed to a translation mix-up, one of the game's main creators reignited fans' hopes, as reported by the Spanish media site Game Reactor and translated to r/gaming leaks and rumors subreddit. Chrono Trigger co-creator Yuji Horii said he was beginning to contemplate a Chrono Trigger remake following the success of the HD 2D style projects that Square Enix has done on beloved series such as Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake, which I think you reviewed last year. And Horii's comments come following his appearance at a convention in Naples and clarified that his words about a potential Chrono Trigger remake were lost in translation. Now, I had seen some people talk about that, and you can see him talking, and he closes his mouth and puts his hand, so it's like he wasn't supposed to say anything. The story finally concludes by saying, however, Hori said he's open to the idea after hearing numerous fan requests about the project, particularly since 2025 marked 30 years since the game's original launch on the SNES. Square Enix has not officially confirmed if a Chrono Trigger remake is being developed. As the main creator of the popular Dragon Quest series, Hori will oversee some upcoming releases. Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D remake will launch sometime in 2025, and development continues on the upcoming Dragon Quest 12, The Flames of Fate. Only a few details about Dragon Quest 12 have been released by Hori and Square Enix, and future tidbits are being released, quote, little by little over this time. With Chrono Trigger observing its 30th anniversary through 2025, the iron remains hot for the beloved SNES JRPG to get a modern remake on various platforms. It remains to be seen if or when Square Enix will go forward with this popular fan request. They would be stupid not to.
Yeah, it's for the longest time, Final Fantasy VII was their if an emergency, push button to make game, and when that became a success, and now there's you know figuring out what can they do in the short term, because remember, like, was it a year or two ago when they got their new CEO? One of the things they wanted to do was shift away from their previous plan of, like, they were putting out a lot of games that were of somewhat dubious quality, or just like sort of dead on arrival AA titles.
Kind of like
And
that, like Final Fantasy one where the guy was just yelling chaos every 5 seconds.
well, that was, yeah, that was a partnership thing that they were doing too, but it was like they put out Valkyrie, like a Valkyrie profile game, uh Diofield Chronicle. They had like 7 games come out within like 2 months, and of them maybe one or two were actually good and actually sold okay. The rest were just kind of crap. And it's not a bad idea for companies to have a variety of titles they want to try out and not just do big franchises. But it appeared like they weren't putting a lot of effort into their games, and it was hurting them financially. And it was basically Final Fantasy that was sort of keeping them alive. And now they've had some success, obviously, with the HD2D stuff. They wanted to focus more on a couple divisions, so we're getting less games but of higher quality. And this has sort of been like there's been a rumor for Final Fantasy IX getting a remake, and then this was like Chrono Trigger is truly like the, hey, if we want to make money, even though the original didn't sell as nearly as many as people think, it's just become uber famous online, right? And like, just, it's become legendary, even though it probably only sold like 1 million copies, or maybe barely even 2 million or whatever it is originally. It's just become this big thing in the last 10 years or so online, of like people outside of the gaming bubble.
Did
And
Was it successful when the DS port happened?
I don't think so. I like, it's sold, but like it's never been like a
Cultural
bazillion seller.
touchstone.
Yeah, it's been like more of a word of mouth thing over the years, and streaming, and then the game collecting. And I think through people streaming playing the original, especially like Gen Z.
Mhm.
Millennials knew about it, and those that were gamers knew about it, and a lot of people knew, like, oh, this is the RPG you get if you're not really into RPGs. This is the one to try.
It's
That
like
was always,
Final Fantasy by way of Dragon Ball was how
yeah,
I saw it.
yeah, and it was like, this is the non-RPG fans RPG.
Yeah.
That was how it was sold a lot to our generation. And
Mhm.
it seems like a lot of Gen Z, if you look on like Twitch and that streaming, like, people are like, wow, this is like really good. It's because the pixel art holds up more to a style that you see now, and a lot of
Mhm.
that is people now are making fan games that are basically similar. You know what I mean? Like, so there's that, but it's always been like the critical darling. So that's the one where it's like, well, what do we do? Do they remake it in a style of like, Final Fantasy VII, where it's like crazy high budget like that? No, but you also don't necessarily want to make it like the HD2D games, because that feels a little too low effort for something that's that big of a title.
What
And
I
like,
would do if I was going to do it, I would do it in the style of the HD 2D remake, but I would completely redo the cutscenes that the PlayStation version had and just add more of those throughout and add optional voice acting. Maybe that's an option
Uh,
they could do, but
all
casting for this would be so hard.
all the HD 2D games have fully voiced. That's one of their deals that they have for it.
Mhm.
They always have it. I would say the happy medium would be to keep the Toriyama art style,
Yeah,
but
of course.
do it in 3D, but like do it like a halfway step. So it's
Mhm.
like the HD 2D visuals for the overworld and land and that. But when when it gets to the battles, oh, I would say if it had the budget and look and style of Flare Obscure Expedition 33 that just came out,
Mhm.
that was a fairly low budget game, somewhere in like the 15 to 20 million dollar budget for an indie studio with like 40
Mhm.
people. If they can do this, there's no reason why Square Enix with infinitely more resources can't do something at that scale. Halfway in between, meet us halfway. It doesn't have to be hyper realistic looking and this epic spread out across 5 games or bullshit or whatever. What it can be is it can be that game, maybe have a little bit of stuff expanded. um I would say it doesn't have to be like adding a bazillion chapters or including previous stuff, but like maybe you could do something where there's a bit of a twist to it, where there's an epilogue after that sort of helps tie it into
Radical
Cross.
Dreamers. Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
that's it, yeah.
Chrono Cross or Radical Dreamers. You could have that. You could expect you could mess with people's expectations, and when you go to do certain things, like let's say you get to a certain point of the game and you're like, okay, so this is where I do this, and now I've got to go this, and now I've got to go to the Kingdom of Zeal, and then just throw a wrench in it, and there's like a new timeline, and you're like, wait,
Yeah, I
what?
was about to say, if they added an optional time period where if you wanna play the game straight, fine, you can still get all the possible endings, but include a new time period that'll branch off into, like, 4 or 5 new things, but it doesn't disrupt the main narrative, it only
Yeah.
adds to it. That'd
Or
be
you
fine.
or you get the Wings of Time, and you start like the Epoch, and you start flying around. You finally get the ability to fly around, and you look, and you're like, wait a minute. There's like a new island with stuff, and so that maybe not that there's a new timeline, but maybe there's like a new smaller island or continent of the world that now
'Cause I
has
think 'cause
some
I
extra
think the
missions.
DS version did that, didn't it? There was,
I
like, a new
actually
dungeon? I think yeah, there
there
was, yeah, there was a new
yeah,
dungeon.
there's usually a new dungeon in all those like GBA and DS titles, but like on the map, there's areas where there could have been stuff that there wasn't stuff in, but
Yeah,
like it might be easier for them to integrate a new island into it and have its own little like
side
section
quest or
where
whatever.
side quests that happen that to span time through a couple sections that could add a couple hours of gameplay and add some new interesting elements to it. Maybe you know there in Chrono Cross there was two endings that were like more than two endings, but like there was like you could beat the game and get your multiple endings, or you could do the optional thing there was an optional way to basically do the proper ending that would give you the harder boss to beat, and that gave you the better ending.
So
There
kinda
wasn't
like fighting Gilgamesh in Rebirth, sort of like, if you do this, you're gonna encounter something really cool, but you really gotta work for it.
Yeah, or in some games like other games have done it since where you beat the boss, you get the ending, but if you do this optional really hard shit, it makes the final boss even harder, but beating that gives you the better ending. And that's something that they did in Chrono Cross, a few years later. That
Mhm.
wasn't in Chrono Trigger. The way you beat the boss and everything that is pretty much locked in stone, and
Yeah.
it's just the other peripheral things that you did to affect the ending. So they could do stuff like adding, you know hey, if you've done all these sorts of things, guess what, there's a secret optional boss that changes the ending a little bit or does something. There's a lot of things they could do, and I think that's, out of all the franchises and out of the things that they own, that's the thing people want to see the most now that Final Fantasy 7 is worked its way out. I mean, personally, I'd love to see Final Fantasy 8 get the 7 treatment, but that ain't gonna
That'd be
happen.
really cool, but yeah, you're right.
But like I think 9 is an easier bet because of the art style of it. Could be,
Mhm.
blown up a little bit better. But anyway, you could do a lot of things with it that I think if we see it, it would be probably 2028 or 2029. It's all going to depend. Is if this is going to be an HD 2D game we see it in 2 years because they would have probably already been working on it.
Yeah.
Because outside of Dragon Quest, 1 and 2 coming, they haven't announced any more in the HD 2D games. Usually the last like several years, it's basically been one a year, and or more. And we've seen advertised. We haven't heard anything there. We haven't heard anything from their other 2D style team that does the Octopath Traveler stuff. We also haven't seen anything from as far as that sort of similar style. We've got the Bravely Default uh, remake coming for the Switch 2, but outside of that, that's just a remake of a previous game. I don't even know if it's the main team working on it, but the teams that would be making these sorts of things there have been very quiet, and all we've been seeing is Dragon Quest 1 and 2. Probably we'll get more Dragon Quest that way, but still, like, if they're not going to do any of the other Super Nintendo games that they, like Live Alive that they brought out that was like never released here before, there's a few others they could do. I feel like if we don't see any announcement of those other games this summer, then it's pretty clear that it's going to be one of those teams working on a Chrono Trigger right now.
What I'm going to say, hot prediction, is if we don't see something at Summer Game Fest, which is unlikely considering that's just a couple of weeks away, I'm going to say at Jeff's big shindig this December, you're going to hear a musical cue out of Chrono Trigger, and they're going to say, then you'll hear a musical cue, you'll hear that the birds from the beginning of the game, you'll see the clock, and you'll see a date, and that crowd explodes. That's what I'm going to predict.
If they do it, it'll be the birds, and then you'll hear like it won't be like one of the major songs. It'll be like the ding dong of the bell.
Yep.
And then it'll be pretty quiet. You'll see basically a blank screen, and then you'll just hear the sound effect of Lavos, like the sound he makes before he launches his
missile
nukes.
attack or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. You'll hear like the horrifying screech, and then it would just have
maybe Chrono's mom saying, "Chrono, it's time to wake up."
And it would have or it would have like a counter on the screen pop up. It'll have a date of when the reveal is going to be.
Yeah.
It'll be that, or flip a coin if we haven't seen throughout the summer, throughout Tokyo Game Show. The other thing that you'll see is the Final Fantasy IX thing, because that's the last game that was part of that NVIDIA leak like 4 or 5 years ago. It's the only game that hasn't been shown off yet that was confirmed that people have insiders have said that it's basically done. People are just waiting to see when that comes. So if they haven't shown Final Fantasy IX's remake, you'll expect to see that. If they do show that in Summer Game Fest or at Tokyo, then maybe we will get a teaser, because we really don't know what they've got coming, because after they come out with Bravely Default, with a Fairy something HD, whatever they're calling the remaster. They have nothing else on the slate except for Final Fantasy VII Part 3.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Like literally nothing. Like that is an oddity. Usually a few things, but they have nothing on this. So it's got to be something big coming.
Yeah, so let's definitely hope. All right, so our next story comes courtesy of GameIndustry.biz. Bungie confirms that Marathon uses, quote, unauthorized artwork as undertaking review of in-game assets. Bungie confirmed its recent alpha for Marathon used, quote, unauthorized decals and design after the developer was accused of lifting assets from posters designed in 2017. Artist Anti-Real pointed out the use of her artwork in-game on social media while tagging the developer and franchise art director Joseph Cross. Bungie, quote, is of course not obligated to hire me when making a game that draws overwhelmingly from the same design language I refined for the last decade, but clearly my work was good enough to pillage for ideas and plaster all over their game without paying or attribution, Anti-Real said. Quote, in my 10 years, I was never made a consistent income from this work, and I'm tired of designers from huge corporations mood boarding and parasiting my designs while I struggle to make a living, added Anti-Real. Quote, Bungie responded via its Marathon dev team account on Twitter, taking responsibility for the incident. Quote, we immediately investigated a concern regarding unauthorized use of artist decals and Marathon and confirmed that it was a former Bungie artist included in these texture sheet that was ultimately used in game. The studio said the issue was unknown by its existing art team and then it has reached out to, quote, do right by the artist. As a matter of policy, we do not use the work of artists without their permission, the account said. To prevent similar issues in the future, we are conducting a thorough review of our in-game assets, specifically those done by former Bungie artists, and implementing stricter checks to document all artist attributions. Bungie has been accused of lifting work 4 times now. Last year, an artist was accused of the studio of borrowing its designs for a Destiny 2 Nerf gun, which amicably was resolved in 2023. An artist pointed out the similarities between their artwork and a piece of apparel in the Destiny 2 cutscene, appeared in the Destiny 2 cutscene. Bungie resolved this by compensating and crediting the artist. In 2021, fan art was used in a trailer when Bungie again resolved after reaching out to the artist in question. Stop stealing artwork. Holy shit.
They
This is
have
not
one of the
that
worst.
hard.
They have one of the worst reputations, which is kind of insane that they keep getting away with it.
Yeah, there's actually someone that I know and I have a personal relationship with, and they are, according to them, I have not independently verified this. They have done some stuff for Bungie when it comes to level design, and this was before that thing all got ported over to 343 Studios and Halo got taken over by them. But they had done work on like the original 4 or 5 Halo games, according to them. And they're like, yeah, it's not a great work culture. A lot of stuff goes uncredited. Long hours are not rewarded. So this is not the first time that I have heard this, which is really unfortunate. And you know me, Alex, I'm the FPS guy.
Yep.
I don't give a fuck about Marathon. In the least do I not care. Like, it looks
I
so
think
boring.
I think extraction shooters might be.
Unless it's Helldivers, I don't care. And even then, that is you're really gonna have to drag
You have
my eyes over to them.
you have room for maybe 2 in the market of live service games.
Yeah.
Literally, like maybe 2.
Yeah, and right
And
now it's Overwatch, which is hemorrhaging players and has been for a while, and Marvel Rivals, which is spectacularly successful, but they're not doing a lot with.
well, and look at what happened. Ubisoft has canceled multiple games like this. Remember they tried to do the Rainbow Six
Extraction or whatever it was called.
yeah,
Yeah.
terrible.
Oh,
And like you look at this and then you look at it's not part of our regular stories, but you can sort of pair this in here with Jade Raymond leaving Haven Studios with Sony before Fair Games even comes out, and Fair Games was pushed to next year. That was the new game that they're making, an extraction shooter, and it's like apparently had bad external reviews when they had testing on it, so that the head of the studio had to leave. Like, what is with where did the idea for these extraction shooters become like we're going to do every single game?
People saw Overwatch. People saw how successful that was. They're like, hey, that prints money. And then we saw what happened with Concord last year, which arguably, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it wasn't a bad game, but it just wasn't it, right? It was aggressively mid. Is what
It was a ton of money for something that you would get bored with within an hour.
Yeah, like basically, I've played this, but if I want to play something with an interesting world lore and a community, you play Overwatch. And Overwatch has a wonderful community, but the problem is I think some of its player base is remarkably toxic. But it has a wonderful, like, the lore is there, but they've never really expanded upon it. Like, I'm really sad we never got the PvE modes or true single player. All we get is multiplayer, and we get some really pretty cutscenes every couple of months whenever a new hero comes out, which is awesome. But I want to know why Pharah exists. I want to know why Tracer does this. Why does Widow hate so and so? That's cool. That's what I want to know. But to do a hero shooter properly in 2025, you can't force a community. Marvel Rivals had the advantage that Marvel is still considered a fairly hot IP, and the game itself is really fun. Toxic as fuck, but really fun. And the fact that they made it free to play, if you want to buy the skins, great. I've bought one. I have Frank Castle, the Punishers. I have his desert gear from like the alpha season. I spent $10 on this and I'm happy. I bought the battle pass one. Okay, maybe I've spent like 15, but I don't play it that often because it's cool. But I don't know. Give me the Green Goblin and Carnage. Maybe I'll jump back in. But it's a great game, but I'm just not their audience anymore. And Destiny 2, it's there. People play it, but it's there. You mentioned Ubisoft. They're doing another season in The Division 2. And my question is, there's a community for that still? Like, live service games are hard to do. And you can't, not every game is going to be Fortnite. It is not going to happen. Fortnite is the thing that proved it can work, but should it work? I mean, I posted a video to our private chat where now there's an AI Darth Vader singing Skibbity Riz, and that's actually James Earl Jones's voice saying Skibbity Riz. But like you can't make
Yeah.
these live service games, and not all of them are going to be successful. It is not going to happen. The Avengers crashed and burned from a wicked IP. Blech, died on the vine. You tried to do I'm trying to think of like other really cool live service games that just died. Hell, what was Foam Stars? There's another shooter that went fucking nowhere.
That's part of the whole Square thing, where they're trying to divest from medium budget, like stuff that isn't as well thought through.
Yeah, and again, it's like, okay, it's Splatoon, but not as cartoony. Who gives a rat's ass? It's like it's so hard to do anything in this space. You're not all gonna be Rocket League. You're not all gonna be Marvel Rivals. You're not gonna be Fortnite. Stop chasing Fortnite. Make something interesting. If it happens to be live service, maybe it'll work and maybe it won't. Not everything is going to work like this. Like I remember, Alex, you and I were excited somewhat for Anthem. And then that game was dead faster than I think it was dead in less than 6 months. And then there was that game by Capcom where you fought dinosaurs, Exoprimal or something. That died. Think about I'm going to go to an older example from PlayStation 4 and 4, and I can't remember the name of the game, but you hunted creatures and the creatures would get tougher and so would you. Do you know what I'm talking about? It was made by 2K maybe.
Uh,
I can't think of the name, but you can see it in your head. Red was very dominant in it. And it happened on like a jungle
yeah,
planet. Yeah, again, yeah.
I'm forgetting. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
dude.
But yeah, like there's another game they pump so much money into and nobody fucking cares. Like I can't remember who it was. Either Inside Gaming did a really good breakdown of this, or maybe it was Scott the Woz. I want to say it was Scott the Woz did a really good breakdown of this. And it's like, yeah, you're gonna have to realize you're not always gonna get this. Should you make money? Yeah, sure, but not at the expense of your player base. And Concord proved that. Like you can't force community. Like the fact that they paid for an episode of that show, Secret Level. The game was shit canned, and they still premiered it because of contractual
Yeah.
obligations. You can't do that. It doesn't work. And I don't know what live service games I care about right now because like I haven't played Fortnite in 3 years. I don't care, and that's a thing that'll remain popular with the Skibbity Toilet Riz kids until it's not, because I'm sure something else will come along at some point. But it's not there anymore. Like Fortnite is its own culture. You can't recapture that. It doesn't work. And even when you get developers like Square Enix trying to get their own live service games, like I know that one game was like its servers were dead in less than 3 months. I don't know what the answer is here. I really don't. But I'll tell you, it ain't fucking Marathon going back to your roots or something like that, and you're stealing from people. Maybe focus on what made you good and do something original.
This is what all this money for, going into all their like these games recently from them, and not one of them has said, "Hey, what made us money was our narrative story."
Yeah, like you told a really interesting Halo story up until, things changed around Halo 5. I want to say, no, that was 343. After Reach and stuff, things got a little weird. Um and the story's never quite been the same. Infinite was their best chance, and they fucked that up real fucking bad.
That
I
was
don't
them
know.
though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, they started out with a really good IP, then they passed it off to somebody else. They dropped the
De-
ball. They
Destiny
need their new
has
Halo.
Destiny has a good story. They just didn't
Bury it.
do anything with it, and it's
Yeah.
like somebody there, somebody at Sony needs to say, okay, you can have a great multiplayer thing. You should keep Destiny going as long as you can, yada yada. But in order for you to save face and for us to save face, you need to make your next game a smaller, maybe 10-hour, but big narrative driven game. Because
Yes.
you need to make your Doom. Make
Yeah.
make your single player game that you can then make the multiplayer a big thing out of, not shoehorn a story, bits and pieces into random ephemera around the game that
Yeah.
is just the same loop over and over again.
Yeah.
You've done like 3 or 4 of these games. They all kind of suck. They're popular with very very niche groups now. Like they went from being the biggest mainstream shooter developer to being like one of the most niche groups. Like, oh, you play Destiny and people look at you like, why?
Yeah, like I remember when Destiny 1 came out, I was playing it regularly for a little while. Like I played the main storyline and then the game opened up, which stop fucking doing that. And I had fun, but then when you started to having to do the raids, you had the gear that was at a certain level. I'm like, you know what? I'm out. I don't care anymore. In Destiny 2, I played the main storyline. Can I tell you what's happening now? Nope, because I don't care. And that sucks. Destiny has such an interesting world, but you're like, it's all thrown in like audio things, or here's a logbook you have to read. No. It got so bad you had to go back and re-record the lines for the ghost companion because he sounded fucking bored. And you know what? I'm right there fucking with you. And then when you kill your most popular character in the opening cutscenes of Destiny 2, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Like, you can do triple A shooters that have a narrative and are interesting and have a good multiplayer. A really good example, which I'm going to lead into our next story, is the Gears of War franchise. Awesome single player, great story. Multiplayer, very competitive. I don't know if it's as popular now, but still, it exists. So, anyway, Bungie, do fucking better. You deserve to do it, but I have a feeling you probably won't. Okay, so last story come courtesy of Gizmodo.com. David Leitch is reportedly going into battle directing Gears of War. Netflix's long film adaptation of Xbox premier video game franchise Gears of War is finally gathering some momentum. Filmmaker David Leitch, the Fall Guy, has signed on the helm the blockbuster take on the Gears of War game series for Netflix. The Hollywood Reporter broke the news that he and his production company 87 North will be partnering up with the Coalition Studio, the video games developers for the movie. The script will be written by Dune scribe John Spatis. The game is based on a universe where the planet Sarah is close to total societal collapse and humanity faces a new monstrous threat, the Locust. The franchise follows Delta Squad, a regiment under the command of Sergeant Marcus Phoenix, who hopes to clear his name in the ragtag army by taking on the threat through gratuitous chainsaw gunning. Their humanity's last line of defense against invasion. Netflix has had the rights to make the games into a franchise since 2022. Leitch's involvement begs the question if some of his frequent actor collaborators might take up the action. The film follows Netflix's past video game adaptations, which include Castlevania, Sonic Prime, and the upcoming Resident Evil and Horizon Zero Dawn. I think there's some possibility here, as long as you do a little less Resident Evil, a little more Castlevania. I don't think this could be bad. Problem with doing Gears of War, you better put the fucking money into it. Because it's such a huge world. Like, you can't just green screen this shit away. You can't. And you need the right actor to play Marcus Phoenix. Hell, you and I both have seen like the Dave Bautista where he comes out as Marcus. Just pay him what he wants to. He wants to do it. Just give him the fucking money. He still looks good. Have John DiMaggio, the guy who voices Marcus, have him be an actor in just put him in the cog armor. I'm sure he'll be happy. You could do this. Like, you find, I don't know. You know who I'd get to play Coltrane? Either the guy who plays Megatron from Transformers 1, the same dude from Bullet Train, I can't think of his name. Or he was the other guy who worked with the assassin pair in Love Hurts, the big black guy. He would be my pick for Coltrane. I don't know who you get for Baird. Okay, I have an unconventional casting choice. Will not happen. Bill Burr, I think, would be a wonderful Baird. Just because he has that sarcastic kind of flair to his voice. I think he'd be pretty fucking funny. And anybody, Dom, I could see someone like a big Latin actor doing that. Honestly, I could see Gabriel Luna doing that if he put on like 30 pounds of muscle and was
The
like
real
jacked
question
by
is,
shit.
where does Vin Diesel fit into all this?
Vin Diesel? Where would I put Vin Diesel? Well, he's not Marcus. Fuck that. Dom? I think he's a little too. He's a big guy, but he's not thick in the shoulders, if that makes any sense to me.
But there's not really anybody in the world that is built like they design those
Games.
characters, right?
Yeah.
So
Outside of like Dave Bautista and the dude from Love Hurts, yeah, maybe.
and
I'm
Batista's
trying to.
dropped like 100 pounds.
Yeah, like I can't picture where you'd put Vin Diesel. Maybe if you wanted to put him in a funny role, make him that cog soldier that just keeps dying. How there's like 10,000 brothers and they all get their heads blown off. Yeah, sure, why not? Yeah, like the thing is with an adaptation of this scale, you need Zack Snyder Rebel Moon money times 3. It has to be such big, like this would make or break Netflix studios because you're going to have to put so much money into this, and it can't look as cheap as the Paramount Halo series, which nailed the
Yeah.
props but didn't nail the world. It can't
If
be so small scale that it's like, hey, we're just going to follow around Delta Squad wandering around gray corridors. No, that's not Sarah.
if they're smart, it'll be one of two things: either an adaptation of, for the most part, the first game. Because remember, didn't they just announce that the first game has a remake of the remaster or
Yeah,
something?
yeah, coming out on PlayStation later on this year, which
Which
okay, cool.
so is that to coincide with maybe them doing a movie or TV or some sort of adaptation of that story, or do they wait and make it an adaptation of the E-Day game that's coming out?
If they're smart, they'll do the E-Day game, and here's why. E-Day presumes Sarah only has been partially destroyed. I know there were insurgents fighting on the planet, like there were human bad guys, but mostly the locusts were not a huge threat yet. So if you did the E-Day game, yeah, you can lead up to it because in the first Gears of War, Sarah has not exactly had a good fucking time. And it's huge destroyed sets and everything,
Or
blah blah blah. Yeah, so
or
if
do
you
you
did E-Day, you've got options.
or do you make it like the movie a prequel to everything?
The problem with doing that is people want to see the Lancer. They want to see the Lancer cutting through a locust. They want
No,
to
like
see that huge gore.
I
And
mean, or
you
do you make the prologue, like do you make like the first 15 minutes of the movie before everything, like a true flashback to like good
when
in
things were
quotes
calm.
times? Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? That's not bad. You could do it. But again, I think budget sets are going to be a big thing in this. And part of the thing that's going to sell this to people, it's kind of this is just my opinion. What I think sold the Halo series initially is how well the props looked and the costuming looked. Chief's armor looks great. Silver Team, or whatever the fuck they were called, looked awesome. But the rest of the world didn't. The Warthog you saw like twice in the fucking first season, and you saw the Covenant barely. But how I draw this to Gears of War, the cog armor looks a certain way. The Lancer looks a certain way. And we've seen Dave Bautista's take on it done by professionals look pretty good. We've seen Lancers been brought out. We've had toys. I've owned a retro Lancer replica and it looked pretty good. So you need to get the buy-in from the world setting first. Then everything else can fall into place. Because I guarantee you, if they do Sarah, it's like, hey, we're shooting in Eastern Europe because creepy old buildings and it's gray and looks whatever. That's probably where they'll end up setting it, or South Africa or something. Can they pull this off? Maybe. I'm highly skeptical because their history with big adaptations that aren't animated is questionable. Like Death Note, I get what they were going with, but pulling out the collar, Resident Evil was Resident Evil, and need I say more? They've got potential, but I don't know if this will be as successful as they want. I'm glad it's with Netflix and not say fucking Paramount or Peacock or something. So there's potential to make this happen, but I really don't know. And I wouldn't I don't even know whether I trust HBO or Amazon with this because again, it requires
Apple
so much buy-in
Apple
and
could do
money.
it, to be
Apple
honest.
could do it, but it would be like a 4-episode
And
series, which wouldn't be bad.
yeah, and HBO would be great, except you don't know with Zaslav. And the same with Amazon. Amazon could do it, but
Take
they've
10
got a
years.
they've got a lot of money invested in a lot of different things, and like I don't like they have infinite wealth essentially,
Yeah.
right? They could
Mhm.
spend on it, but they're already taking up a lot of studio time. Like how much can they spend on? You know what I mean? At this point, and actually retain the quality. So at this point, Netflix might be the best place for it. Like,
Yeah, like it's got the place where it could breathe here, but will it? Like you just mentioned Amazon Fallout looks fantastic from the leak stuff I've seen. They've learned enough. You have to take it outside the vault. You do need some more creatures. We've seen leaks of Caesar's Legion. There's
yeah, I
their
think it's
big thing will be a Death Claw at the end of the season is what I'm going to guess, but we didn't get it. I'm glad they're saving that. Mass
they've
Effect will happen maybe.
yeah, they've also sort of confirmed that I believe season 2 takes them to New Vegas.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's already New Vegas. I've seen Caesar's Legion. Mr. House is going to show up. That's going to be great, and that premieres
Uh,
in December of this year,
if the Mass Effect show happens, the smart move would be
between 2 and 3, when Shepard's dead or in jail.
uh it would not be that though. They're trying to go for a wide audience.
Hmm.
So it would literally be the first game's plot, or if they were smart, I think the smart move is to actually make it you have the opening like 5 minutes of the first episode is us discovering the
Mass
relay
relays, yeah, and it's
and discover
basically first
and
contact war.
yes, first contact war for the first season, and first contact war, and you end the season with Anderson walking, reading the dossier, and you don't even have Shepard in it.
Yeah, that would be really fucking smart. Now, hopefully, they don't fuck it up. They probably will,
Be-
but
The
we'll
the
see.
reason the reason I say that is Shepard doesn't have a defined background. Remember, we pick from one of several backgrounds. Like, are you a spacer? Did your family die? Like, you have those. Like, I don't think that they want to give a definitive background
The
uh
canon Shepherd, quote
for the
unquote.
canon Shepard, or whatever. But you could set it. There's ways to do it, but I do think that it would be the first contact war because you can have a few of your epic space battles. You have your encounters with the bird people,
Yep,
um,
Victorian. Yeah.
and then you can end it with being on the relay that like because I don't think that they always writers don't want to just retread the entire games,
Hmm.
but I I do see that could still come. We'll see. We already know that there's a God of War game or adaptation.
Series. Yeah.
There's a few others, but I do think that this project has potential, but I don't know. It's really up in the air. Like is it going to be a Last of Us quality? Probably not.
Hmm.
But is it going to be is it going to be the quality of Fallout? That's the hope, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we'll have to wait and see. With all these video game adaptations, frankly, we are eating pretty good right now. And I know we just lost the Tomb Raider series over at Amazon within the last couple weeks. Fine, whatever. I think that's a property that needs a little bit of a rest anyway. We'll wait and see. But as for Gears of War, I am cautiously optimistic, but I need to see budget, and I need to see who's involved. David Leitch, great, awesome. You did John Wick, cool. Can you do epic scale? I know you can do violence, but can you do that on Band of Brothers meets Insanity? We'll have to wait and see. So anyway, guys, that's going to bring us to a close here on the Nerd News Network, only on thisweekingeek.net. We're now going to take a listen to one of my reviews, and this is going to be my review of the complete series of Ben 10. Jeez, this series is huge. I'll give you my impressions of what I think so far of what I'm hopefully will becoming one of my favorite new franchises. We'll wait and see, guys. We will be back right here on thisweekingeek.net with the weird news, because believe me, strange things are afoot in the neighborhood. We'll be back, guys, right after this, only on thisweekingeek.net. Hey guys, this is Mike the Birdman here. I'm here to talk to you about something we got for review from our friends over at Warner Brothers Home Entertainment. I'm talking about Ben 10, the complete series. And that is where we're going to run into some complications. Okay, so before I go any further in this review, Ben 10 is a classic Cartoon Network animated series about Ben Tennyson. He's a kid who finds this thing called the Omnitrix, which basically gives him access to this huge library of alien DNA. He has something like over 1 million forms, Alien X. He's basically like a space druid. And what I mean by that is he can wild shape into all these wicked creatures. He has like a guy that he has like a thing, I think it's called Punchy Mustache, where literally it's a creature that can punch you with its mustache. There's a thing called a Walking Trout, and there's literally an alien called the Worst. And it's funny because I know most of this from Rooster Teeth's Death Battle series, where they had Ben 10 fight against Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps, and that's where a lot of my Ben 10 knowledge comes from. This is a really, really cool show, and having this on DVD complete, quote unquote, should be something to be utterly celebrated. However, that being said, so what this series is supposed to include, you're supposed to get Ben 10, Ben 10 Alien Force, Ben 10 Ultimate Alien, and then finally Ben 10 Omniverse, and the 2 movies including Ben 10 Secret of the Omnitrix and Ben 10 Destroy All Aliens. Now, this is where the problem therein lies. So Ben 10 Omniverse is supposed to include 80 episodes. From what I can tell, I'm not super familiar with this series. It seems like 40 of those episodes are missing. I've actually been tracking a lot of online conversation on this across multiple social media sites, multiple reviews across multiple retailer websites, and a lot of people seem to be dissatisfied the fact that the latter half of Ben 10 Omniverse is missing. And because there's no disc menus in some of these things, so I can say, okay, that episode's here, that episode's here. I can't just look at episode titles to tell you whether things are here properly or not. These discs are really weirdly laid out. Like, these are clearly a I guess a reprint, or, you know, them putting out old material on new discs. So there hasn't been much change in the way of menu kind of layout or anything along those vibes. So it is incredibly hard for me to track and to tell you everything that is present. So in the research that I've been able to conduct over this, it appears like a lot of stuff is missing. And if you only care about seeing Ben 10, Ben 10 Alien Force, and Ben 10 Ultimate Alien and the movies, cool, you're covered. But if you want the complete series, and it even says on the back of the retail box, on the back of the one, you can probably hear me moving it around here in the background, where it says Ben 10 Omniverse Series Episodes 80, this was clearly meant to be included, but for whatever reason wasn't. So I don't know what the solution is to this. And I've even read that retailers have stopped selling this until the situation can, quote unquote, be resolved. So I was really hoping this would be a more positive review of this situation, because again, this is a series that is incredibly cool. It's well animated. It's a classic. It's like baby's first Green Lantern, but a lot cooler, right? Like, literally, you have someone that could fight the Green Lantern or fight Goku. Awesome! But we're not getting everything, and this is not the first time I've heard this complaint when it comes to complete series sets either before in the past, as I'm pretty sure I've reviewed several of those here on this show. So at the current time, until issues have been resolved around the Ben 10 The Complete Series DVD release from Warner Brothers Home Entertainment and Cartoon Network, I cannot recommend this series at the current time. Hopefully we get the additional episodes printed, or we get some kind of a statement on this. Again, I wish I was more familiar with this so I could give you a wider overview, but it's a lot to go through 200 episodes and just become an expert overnight. So yeah, unfortunately, guys, I really wish the news was better. And unfortunately, at this current time, this is me omnitrixing into the worst, and it really breaks my heart to say that.
Go crazy?
Don't mind if I do!
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Welcome back to This Week in Geek.net. I'm Mike the Birdman. He is Alex the producer. And it is now time to enlighten and enrich and make you endure the same hell on earth that we all enjoy. This is the weird news. Our first story comes courtesy of the Hollywood Reporter. And welcome to the Running Man with Whitman, Price, and Hadot, last year's fabulous winners. Where are they now? Well, they are enjoying the California sunshine as we are now envisioning our own hell that is the Running Man. Though not exactly. According to the Hollywood Reporter, the Department of Homeland Security is considering a reality show pitch from Duck Dynasty producer that would focus on U.S. citizenship. The show is called The American and would put immigrants through a series of challenges as they compete for a U.S. citizenship. It's being pitched as a reality TV show veteran. Rob Warshoff, who's from Duck Dynasty, the millionaire matchmaker, has been confirmed on his Facebook page last Friday. Quote, "It's not mean-spirited. Instead, The American is a celebration of what it means to be, well, American. It's all at a time when our morale is at an all-time low," Warshoff said. In a statement to the Hollywood Reporter, the Department of Homeland Security Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs, Tricia McLaughlin, confirmed the show is being reviewed. Quote, "The Department of Homeland Security receives hundreds of television show pitches a year, ranging from documentaries surrounding ICE and CPP border operations to white-collar investigations of HSI," McLaughlin said. Each proposal undergoes a thorough vetting process prior to denial or approval. McLaughlin said The American was in the beginning stages of vetting processes and has not been received for approval by staff or denial by staff. The Daily Mail was first to report on the news. The Mail reported that the Secretary of State Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, was pushing the project, while McLaughlin, in her statement, said it was denied. In his Facebook post, Warshoff said he hadn't spoken to Noem just yet, but it added that he'd been working with some of her colleagues at the Department of Homeland Security. He also suggested he'd been pitched a show from former President Barack Obama during the presidential Joe Biden administration. It was never a flat-out no from any admin. It was just always, it was about timing, he said. Warshoff, an immigrant from Canada, we're so sorry, also confirmed to the Wall Street Journal that the program would be a competition show where citizens competed in stereotypical American activities, from collecting gold from the mine in San Francisco or assembling a Model T in Detroit. Under the Trump administration, the Department of Homeland Security has spent millions on television and radio commercials featuring Noem telling immigrants who aren't in this country illegally to, quote, leave now. Warshoff emphasized in his Facebook post that he wanted the show to send a positive message. He stressed that, per his pitch, any backwards movement in the show's competition would not affect immigration citizenship processes in real life. He wrote in Facebook that he wanted the series to be a, quote, heartfelt series with tears of joy from fun, loud American challenges, be they mental or physical. He added, quote, "I look forward to more updates in the future." Alex, we are about 2 seasons away from the premiere of The Running Man at this point.
Yeah.
And here's my question. Here's a thought that I posted to a fairly well-known actor who's a pretty socially leaning. And he was talking about this exact thing, which is how I became aware of this story. By the way, for those of you that aren't aware, Kristi Noem is the person who took her dog to the gravel pit and shot him. So wonderful human being, and also poses for concentration camp photos. But the point I'm trying to make here is PBS was recently defunded by the Trump administration. So for some reason, they're going after Sesame Street. And I was posting a theory. It's like, I wonder if the US would refund PBS, public broadcasting system, to run this immigration show as their flagship. And if that wouldn't be the ultimate fuck you to people like Mr. Rogers, Arthur, and Sesame Street as a counterculture saying, hey, look what we did to your baby. And this is gross on so many levels. Like, obviously, we are very progressive here on this show. We believe everybody's equal. Don't be a piece of shit. Don't be a jerk. But this is terrible. If this thing gets made, like, sure, we've seen, what's that one show, Alice, where they're like the Golden Bachelor, or it's like, hey, here's a guy in his 60s and here's women in their 30s, and vice versa.
MILF Island.
MILF, like, we are regressing really fucking fast. And I'm just, like I said, I'm waiting for the network up front where they bring in, here's the Hernandez family from Guadalajara.
I'm waiting for them to just like put two babies in the ring and watch them fight to the death, because they're working their way towards it.
Yeah, like, we are literally one step away from, like Pokemon fighting, and it's gonna be with genetically engineered animals. Hell, like, I know one story we reported on late last year at one point, we were talking about the steroid Olympics. Yeah, that'll happen at some point. And if we get the immigration show, like I said, we are about 2 years away from the Running Man taking people on death row saying, hey, if you can beat our stalkers, and I guarantee you, Hulk Hogan, who's a fan of this administration, that's their Captain Freedom. And Dana White's going to be the guy casting the stalkers from his pit of roided out lunatics. Maybe Conor McGregor will be on like commentary on these pay-per-view events, which, if you use meme coin, you can get like a better viewing angle or something. This is disgusting, but you're right. Seems remarkably on point. We are literally one step away from baby knife fight at this point. It is horrifying, to say the least. And yeah, America sucks. And if you don't like it, sorry, America sucks.
You get what you vote for. It's as simple as that.
Exactly. And as the Joker said, you get what you deserve. I'm not saying anything in that regard, but I'm merely quoting a famous movie, put it in context. Moving on to our next story from USA Today. Kindergarten teacher brought Jell-O shots to school and gave them out to students, says district. A Pennsylvania school has launched an investigation after it said a kindergarten teacher brought Jell-O shots to class. My God. The Greater Johnson School District said in a statement shared to social media on Wednesday, May 14th, the student had been given alcohol in the form of small Jell-O shots to 3 other students. Calling it an isolated incident, the press release signed by Superintendent Dr. Amy Ochuro said, quote, immediate action was taken when staff became aware of the incident and the affected students were evaluated by the school nurse. Emergency medical services transported the students to a local hospital out of an abundance of caution where their parents were able to meet them. The statement said the shots were confiscated and local authorities are working with the school to determine how the students obtained them. We want to assure families that the health and well-being of our students is our top priority. Counselors and support staff will be available for any students who need assistance processing today's events, the statement said. It's fucking Jell-O shot. I get it. It's an elementary school kindergartner. I get it. That is pretty serious. I'm wondering if the kindergartner just grabbed them out of the fridge and wasn't looking, which, that's a pretty simple mistake. And this has been a week where kids are acting particularly stupid. Again, not in our official stories this week, but there was a little girl in Washington this last week, a toddler, who developed a crippling fear of John Wilkes Booth. For those of you that don't know who that is the assassin who killed Abraham Lincoln. And this little girl, this toddler, like 4 or 5 years old, was convinced that John Wilkes Booth was hiding under the bed, was hiding in her closet, and said to her parents something along the lines of, you know who we do love, Mom? Jesus. And the parents are like, okay, yeah, that's great. We love Jesus. Cool. You know who we don't love? They're like, who? John Wilkes Booth. Kids are stupid. Now,
Yeah.
from Jello shots to John Wilkes Booth, what a wild time to be alive, right? Like, when you and I were alive, what's the most complicated thing you and I had to be aware of? Don't eat the paste.
Well, I'd like to think that I'm still alive.
You don't know, Alex. You could very well be dead.
For us, it was, don't eat apples that are put in your Halloween bag.
Don't eat yellow snow.
Don't take candy from strangers. I guess something that's from our generation that the young kids literally don't really deal with anymore for the vast majority is it was always the, don't grab a can of pop to just randomly try to drink from the table because mom and dad might have used it as an ashtray.
Oh, yep.
Right? Like
that
like
water was just thinking about that grosses me out.
But I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
That's our version of that, right? It was like, don't you can't just randomly grab a drink, not because it would be alcoholic, but because back in the day, everything
was an ashtray.
Everything was an ashtray late at night, and they just leave it out. You're like, oh, free pop, and you'd be like, you get that ash in your mouth.
The thought of that. I had some of that water spill on me once. Oh my God, I've had disgusting experiences in my life, but that is top 3.
It's almost like you got to flip a coin. Which is worse, ashes in a pop can or a spittoon?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm gonna argue the ash is way fucking worse. But yeah, it's like kids today have the weirdest situations, at least in America. Now, I don't hear a lot of horror stories because my wife does work in the education system. And for the most part, I'll hear the odd negative story where maybe a class is a little bit unruly. EAs maybe not having a great time with certain unruly students. And that's usually about the extent of it. I've never heard of Jello shots. I have never heard of being afraid of John Wilkes Booth. I don't know what the Canadian equivalent would be. Maybe Louis Riel. Is he in the room with us?
But he's not. He's a completely. I mean,
yeah. Like I'm just like, what is the Canadian equivalent to that? Right?
We haven't really had like assassins of heads of state here. You know what I mean? Like
we've had inconveniences to people.
Would like I forget the guy's name, but the guy that did the massacre at the Polytechnic,
yeah.
But even that, or like ours are a little more recent. Like if you're thinking like, oh God, Carla Homolka's gonna get me, like she's out.
Yeah, exactly.
She's
out there in the neighborhood.
It's not like we don't really have like famous assassins, do we? Like that.
Yeah, you're right. We have Robert Picton, and I think he's dead. We have Paul Bernardo, and ain't no way he's getting out.
He's been trying, and he ain't getting out. She got out because but she's in Quebec. They can deal with her. But as far as like from a historical standpoint, there's probably a few people, but like as far as like in the public consciousness, we don't really have that.
Yeah, like it's so strange. And again, just for this little girl to latch on to this, and again, Jello shots, I could see that being a problem. Like if mommy made them a little bit, intense, and I'm not just whoever made them, whether it was mom, dad, or whoever, Jello shots can be intense, and I should know. I drank a lot of them. In fact, Blair has a very amusing story how she drank Jello shots out of Easter eggs when she was in university. Amusing thought, to say the least. But yeah, it's just kids are weird. And again, I get taken to the hospital. That's the responsible thing to do. I'm gonna guess this was just a kid being goofy and stupid, but kids are progressively getting goofier and stupider day by day.
At that age, they're not making it themselves, right? So
yeah, exactly. I can't see Junior going, well, I need to mix water and a little bit of this. Like, no.
What this was very likely. Woke up in the morning, was getting ready, saw that there was a tray made in the fridge. Was like, oh, I'm going to be the cool kid, and I'm going to bring snacks for my friends.
Yeah, because this was guaranteed. This either happened on a Friday morning because mom or whoever was preparing stuff for Friday night
leftovers
from the weekend. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So this is a case of kid probably swiped them, thought I might get in trouble if I ask, so I'm just going to take them, and then put them in the backpack. Parents didn't know, and then handed them out, and then parents went to work or whatever, and then got the call.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't see this as a major failing on the parents' behalf. I really don't. This was an accident in the best case scenario. In the worst case scenario, maybe there should be a phone call. So our last story this week comes courtesy of you, coming from sfgate.com. California officials find baby monkey and a quote tremendous amount of meth during a drug bust, which methamphetamines is the favorite drug of choice we like to cover on this show because it just seems to show up with raccoons, baby monkeys, alligators, and I'm sure other creatures from the animal kingdom.
Yes.
During a major Northern California drug bust last week, authorities discovered a baby spider monkey and 2 rattlesnakes in the person's home. The discovery came after deputies from Solano County Sheriff's Office pulled over a car in Vallejo on May 6th, the Sheriff's Office said in a news release. Deputies found a half pound of methamphetamines worth or about $26,000 in the car. A 50-year-old man was subsequently arrested after the traffic stop, the sheriff's office said. The following day, detectives searched the man's home in Vallejo because a large amount of meth was enough to prompt concerns about the drug possibly being sold. You think? Sergeant Rex Hawkins, Jesus Christ, that's an 80s name. A spokesperson for the office told SF Gate, that is a tremendous amount of meth to have in a car, and that obviously generates what's called a rollover search warrant, Hawkins said. During the subsequent search of the man's house, detectives found the baby spider monkey and 2 rattlesnakes. They also found another pound of methamphetamines worth and more than $2,000 in cash, the sheriff's office said. The man is facing several charges, including possession of a controlled substance for sale, the possession of exotic animals, the sheriff's office said. Animal control removed the animals from the home, and the spider monkey was turned over to the Oakland Zoo. The female monkey was taken to the zoo's veterinary hospital, where she was reported to be in, quote, decent health and estimated to be about 18 months old. The Oakland Zoo said in a news release. The zoo staff who named the monkey Violetta said they're performing several tests, such as a CT scan, physical examination, and blood work. Violetta is in a temporary home where she has blankets, fruits, vegetables, and a formula that will help her bones, the zoo said. The zoo doesn't have any spider monkeys in its exhibit. Isabel Leonards said, a spokesperson for the zoo told SF Gate, but the institution rescued one back in January. The monkey has since left the facility, and zoo officials plan to find a, quote, proper home for Violetta, she said. Owning primates such as spider monkeys is illegal in California, the Oakland Zoo said in a news release, and spider monkeys, which are endangered, are among the most trafficked animals across the border. Quote, I think it's because they are cute, they're small, and just the popularity of them online has pushed them being popular as well, and that's the case for a lot of exotic animals, she said. It's hard to know Violetta's origins, but Lenar said, and they believe the monkey could have come from Chiapas, Mexico, home to many spider monkeys. Lenar said it's important for the public to realize that owning exotic pets can be traumatic for the animals and dangerous for humans. Primates in general, they start off really cute and small, but they grow and they become very strong, Lenar says. They don't know socialization like us, even if it seems like they're loving and all these things. They're still wild animals and can change at any point. Obviously, there's that very famous story where a woman had a pet monkey, I think somewhere on the East Coast, and it attacked her and tore part of her face off. And eventually it took sheriff's deputies.
It's horrible, but I'm laughing. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. It took like sheriff's deputies shooting it with like pistols. And there's my alarm. Hey, Google, shut up. And it took them taking it down with like a shovel and thank you, prick. Sorry. And it took a lot of firepower to take this animal down. Obviously, we have people like Joe Exotic homing tigers and whatnot. And you do see people that have kind of made it like their YouTube identity to have creatures. Like there's one person I follow. They have like cheetahs or something. Yeah, cheetahs or leopards. One of them is quote unquote safe to have as an animal, but I'm like,
there's something
no.
about Russians and having large cats, which is disturbing.
Yeah, there's a Russian guy on Instagram who has like a panther who basically looks like a big version of Dr. Wily, and it sleeps with them in bed but it has its own enclosure and shit. But I'm just thinking the size of those claws, if it ever decides to play the boxing game with you, which you've seen me do that with Wiley and Ayla, bat. When those claws come out, that's not bat. That's like, I'm going to sever an artery. Or if that cat has a bad day, it could tear your throat out. And that's, I think it was the leopard or whatever. They said they're basically like big kittens. And the reason why you can have them as pets, because they don't have the jaw strength to break your neck, but they can do it to smaller animals. And the reason they win against smaller creatures is because they have better stamina. So they run you down. Then when you're tired, then they break your neck. Whereas I think it's like a cheetah will, pounce on you and tear you limb from limb. But yeah, like people owning exotic animals. I mean, like I joke with Blair, like, hey, it'd be great to have a fox or whatever. But you see people they have large outdoor enclosures. They're usually trained veterinarians, or they run some kind of an animal rescue. And it's okay to have a relationship if you are a trained professional. But if you're rescuing like a capybara to keep in your house, no. If you're doing anything with an exotic animal, like I know, hell, there's even an exotic pet farm do you remember actually a couple years ago where someone's exotic pet got out and it was wandering along the side of the road, and we're like, how is this allowed in our neighborhood? And it was some kind of a dangerous animal, but I can't remember what. But I remember us covering it, and we live not too far from African lion safari, and there's been some allegations, we'll say, leveraged against them. I know Marineland has had multiple investigations against them, and those animals were treated remarkably badly. But it always seems like people have all sorts of animals just being delivered to them, and it's just not a good scene. Anyway, we're going to take a break here on This Week in Geek with a last recording of one of Alex's reviews, and we'll be back, guys, right after this.
This is television of the future, and here's a sneak preview of the new shows you'll see on Tunnel Vision, 1985. On Mondays, laugh it up with the best of Marie.
Just one little hug.
Followed by Knocked Up and On the Run, the Pregnant Man. It's hilarious family entertainment with those cut-up cuties on Charlie's Girls.
Woo! Romanian scumbag.
Then, catch the scintillating wit and warmth of Ramon and Sonia.
Mafungo mats.
It's rib-tickling humor at its best.
That was good work, Lieutenant Jackie.
My pleasure. Buzz with the Fuzz on Police Comic. Then, join our In Focus news team of crack reporters in the field and in action.
Let's go shoot up.
Tunnel Vision, the No Bullshit Network. See epic blockbuster movies made especially for Tunnel Vision.
I won't tell you anything about the plot.
Direct from Matt, it's the Rolling Star on Saturday night.
Hi, I'm Chevy Chase.
Chevy. Chevrolet.
Learn wetback English and evade the Border Patrol.
So this year, say hi, Bawar, and tell them Leon sent you.
Western Union Marijuanagram.
Thanks, Bobby.
This is Tunnel Vision.
I can show you a good time.
Alex, the producer here, with just a quickie review. Our friends over at MVD sent the latest release in the MVD Rewind collection for us to review. That is Tunnel Vision. It's one of those movies that I'd seen the cover for, the poster for, and I think even one of my local video stores had, a poster on the wall for it years and years ago. Had never seen, and I just knew that in my mind it was one of the early releases that had John Candy in it. Turns out he's only in one skit, but here's the basic premise for the series. It's a series of clips. It is sort of like YouTube or Instagram Reels before Instagram Reels before YouTube. The idea also is almost like a precursor to what UHF ended up being. So what this is the basic premise is a television channel that doesn't say whether or not it's UHF or VHF, but it's, sort of on the obscure outer edge of like the television bands at a time in the States when, you know, you still had basically your 3 primary channels and you might have had some independence in between on the other bands. And this predates that. It predates Videodrome. It predates a lot of other things. And the idea is there is a channel that has gone kind of rogue, and they are running programming that is either vulgar or over the top or kind of extreme or just in poor taste, and to get whatever ratings they possibly can. It's kind of a vision into the future, if you will. And it's funny because the film was filmed in like 1973 or 4, and then didn't come out until 76 or 77. Some of the copyright dates are like 78, so it's kind of confusing as to see when it like actually came out, but it's based in 1985. It was their vision, I guess, of 10 years in the future where they saw things going, or where they could see things going for the exploitative nature of television as the expansion, you know, from the 3 networks was going on. And this is, you know, is right around when cable TV was first being launched, but it's not listed as a cable TV channel. But the idea is the people are being called into some form of congressional hearing to explain themselves and try to, you know, explain how they're not being obscene and vulgar, and how they shouldn't be taken off the air. And while they're there, that's the wraparound is explaining it. The rest is a series of clips that are supposed to show what the average day is like of programming on their channel. And it cuts to all these weird programs. Think like SCTV before SCTV. Think UHF before UHF. Think Videodrome before Videodrome. And that's the idea, is that you're seeing clips of like sometimes commercials, but also all the different programs that are on, and they're little, like, you know, comedy sketches and clips, and it's over, you know, some of it's vulgar, some of it is, you know, homophobic, some of it is sexist. It was, even for its time, it was doing that on purpose, but the idea here was to just sort of show like where they thought television was going. It's an interesting thing. There's a lot of people that you might recognize later on that became sort of famous. Chevy Chase was probably the most famous person in this because he plays essentially himself, and this is, you know, right before SNL, or might have been, his clips might have been filmed during SNL starting, because, you know, this was filmed over the span of a couple of years, I think, when they were putting together bits and pieces. Now Howard Hessman's in it, John Candy, Ron Silver, but also there's some other SCTV alum in here. It was weird seeing Joe Flaherty so young, you know, and now that he's, you know, passed in the last year or so, it was interesting to see something that he was in before SCTV. It runs about 70 minutes long because it is a bunch of clips in between that narrative makeup I mentioned, and some of them are hit or miss. It is interesting, and it's fun seeing a lot of these people super young. I would say it's worth watching for sure if you're, you know, a fan of 70s comedy. It's like a precursor to the National Lampoon style of comedy. This has like a little bit of that like counterculture, hippie mentality to it. It has the, I guess, the vulgar nature of what you would see with a lot of that comedy that came about in the, you know, mid to late 70s after. It's sort of a proto production of what that would become in the late 70s to early 80s. It's worth watching. It's not like a movie in the traditional sense, other than the narrative structure that they wrap it around in. It's really just a bunch of like weird skit ideas that they put together in the middle, which in itself is a fun and interesting, you know, look. It only runs about 70 minutes. It has both, you know, presentation in its original 1:6:6 which is like the open mat camera, and then 1:3:3 ratio, which is what it was intended for, because it was meant to sort of represent like, this is what you're seeing on TV versus theater. So I'm glad that they include both. I did watch it for primarily in the open mat 1:6:6 ratio, which is a, you know, a little bit wider. You still have bars, but it was a little a little less claustrophobic looking than watching it in the 133:1 transfer. It is a 4K transfer. It's been a new cleaned up transfer, and it looks pretty good. It is mono audio, as to be expected from this indie production. It is clear and easy to hear the dialogue though, and doesn't sound hollow or anything, so they've done a pretty good job cleaning that up. It does have English subtitles if that's something you need. Now, there is a commentary included that is worth watching because it isn't an overly long picture, obviously, to watch. And there is an interview with the co-writer and co-director, Neil Israel, which was conducted by Stuart Shapiro. It's a 45-minute, retrospective talk on the production of it, how they had it made, its vision and its influence on a lot of other comedy that came out at the time and some of the up-and-coming comedians that were in it. There is the continuity script you can look at page by page, flipping through and read the entire script for the movie, which is interesting how they piece together the little gags, because there is a specific order to them. There's archival photo galleries. There's a brand new photo gallery of new things that they've found for it, radio spots for it, the theatrical trailer, reversible artwork. There's a collectible mini poster inside, and there is a limited edition slipcover if you're getting the first pressing of the release for this. Pretty solid release. It's more of, if you're a big 70s comedian fan, you might want to get it. If you're somebody collecting like Chevy Chase or John Candy movies, that's probably going to be the biggest market for this, I think, outside of people that grew up with it or that are just like looking for something quirky and strange. And for those people, there is, it's not like the whole movie has them both in it, but there's enough in here that you probably haven't seen and you might want to collect if you're a collector of them. Otherwise, it's worth a watch, but unless you're a big time collector, I'm not sure it's going to be for you. For me, and for those of us that are big John Candy fans, it's great to see more John Candy movies getting the Blu-ray treatment. So for that, I'd give it a thumbs up and say it's worth checking out.
Those magnificent bastards! Color me kooky, but something very odd is going on around here.
You're not allowed to talk anymore.
And that's the kind of show it has been here on This Week in Geek, from our very own version of The Running Man to a potential Chrono Trigger remake and Meth Monkeys. I love this reality, don't you? It's so wholesome. I'm still Mike. He's still Alex. Coming up on the site this week, I am recording and editing some more stuff with the boys. I'm working with JT for some stuff that'll premiere later on in the year. I'm also working with Ken and Adam and Dave for a set of fun, goofy side projects we're working on. And kind of a fun thing we might do for summer for Loose Cannon, we're putting together movies for a double drive-in feature. We actually did record something similar along this lines, but we're trying to focus on kids' movies. And I can preview two of mine, which are going to be Three Ninjas, which is a very interesting story about the character of Fester. I found out recently watching a Facebook reel. I'm like, really? Wow, that's cool. And I'm also going to be focusing on the Jonathan Brandis Chuck Norris movie called Sidekicks. I'll be talking about those later on this summer, so look for that later on. Yumi and Aaron are working on some interesting stuff right now, which going back to the 1950s and the 70s.
Yep, and a bunch of other stuff that we won't necessarily talk about because we're not sure the order we're going to record.
Yeah, exactly. Like
there's some weird stuff coming. Believe me.
Yeah, like it's hard to keep track of my calendar right now because I'm thinking, okay, when am I supposed to be saying this is? And it's like literally, I'm like that guy from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia with like the pin board. I'm like, okay, if I do this, I'm here, and if I do this, I'm here, and it's literally confusing. So I'm not sure in what space and time I currently exist. I'm everywhere and nowhere all at once. But one thing you can count on is that I'm likely outside because the new weather's here and my chair's back. I'm looking forward to just kind of getting outside in the next little while. As for games I'm looking forward to playing, hopefully I'll finish up Mech Warrior 5 Clans, Ghost Bear by the time we come back next week. I'm replaying The Last of Us because season 2's already coming to an end on HBO really soon. I think it's only like 8 episodes this season, and then we'll get season 3 whenever. Although I think they filmed, I don't know whether they filmed 2 and 3 back to back. I don't think they did. But I would be surprised. I don't know. Now that we're getting into the summer and things are going to start to slow down for TWIG, we I say that, and yet Summer Games Fest is like creeping up my ass real fast.
We're 2 weeks away from
Don't fucking remind
the
me.
Switch launch and Summer Game Fest and whatever other showcases they've got going on. Eh, eh, Alex is looking at the calendar going, it's going to be fun, but very busy.
I'm dreading new console launch. And that's the thing. Do you remember when we used to get excited for this shit? Then we got into the industry. We're thinking, oh God, new console launch.
The new console launch, I think the last one tainted us because of it happening right in the middle of COVID lockdowns, and just I, I'm so tired.
I have PTSD from clicking the refresh on my keyboard to try and order a Switch 2s.
Dude, dude, you know, the Green Mile when he's like, "I'm tired,
Bird
boss."
box. Yeah.
That like when as soon as I'm like, "Oh, these new consoles are amazing," and then it's like pre-order times come, and like from 2020 and now, like I didn't have any trouble getting the original Switch. I got it within like I think the launch right away. It was no issue. That was 2017. That was right before scalping for consoles became a thing, right?
Yeah.
Because I remember people were having trouble with the OLED edition. I just happened to be able to get it, but there wasn't as much of a rush on that in 2021. But at the same time, like as soon as the pre-orders went live and all this, all I could think of in my head was, "I'm tired, boss."
Yeah,
That's me. It's like I love doing this. I it's our hobby. Gaming is fun, but it's just like new console coming, pre-order start at midnight. It's like and it's like weeks and weeks of hell trying to figure out whether you can get it because it wasn't in our stories, but has been confirmed that from multiple outlets that Nintendo isn't sending out review units of their consoles to outlets until the day of launch.
I'm not surprised. They're probably so afraid of theft and everything
it's
else.
it's the first time that a company has ever done that. Like they limited Xboxes and Sonys during the pandemic because it was what it was,
Supply.
which
Yeah.
but some outlets still received units, a few weeks ahead, right?
Mhm.
Nothing. Like they are literally nothing is going out before the first. And the talk is it's not due to supply. There's apparently a day one operating system update that isn't ready yet.
Oh.
So I think that the reason they haven't sent it out is I have a feeling that they don't have online services ready for it yet.
Probably not. I mean, like,
And that's how they're controlling, if something does get stolen, that nobody can access stuff yet. I think that they're waiting for a major, like, how there's been a patch for our current systems that enabled like
game
the
cart and
game cards
everything.
and all. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think that stuff is ready on the system yet on their launch one, and they have to wait till the servers are ready to send out the day one patches.
Yeah.
So that would explain a fair bit. Like if they're really paranoid about people getting on, I think they're afraid of people getting it ahead of time and a hacker being able to hack the operating system before they've patched a hole.
Oh yeah. Like this is probably the most unorthodox console launch, and I think it's been a bit of a clusterfuck so far, but
I mean, I've had hands on. I'm one of the few, I would say a few
blessed
probably,
few.
and I don't know how you calculate it for the rest of the world, but I'm definitely one of the first 1,000 people in Canada that have hands on it. And it's like, it's great, but like, you didn't have enough time to really go into the nitty gritty. Everything was locked down. Like all the units that I think are available right now are locked in a demo mode that only have specific software on it. So I think
Oh yeah.
that's probably what they're waiting on. And if they're not sending out, they're saying like it's literally not going to be till the day of release that they're sending out units to people. It's like, well, what good does that do? I guess it doesn't. Their argument would be they don't need it because it's going to be the largest console launch ever. But at the same time, you do have a fair amount of people out there that are on the fence of like, I really need to see somebody get proper hands on before I determine if I'm going to buy it right away.
Yeah, like we will do our best to give you the most comprehensive launch. I mean, we have units secured. I think our big
Well,
thing right now is
we
software.
we say that, but
Yeah,
at the
we say
same
that.
time, we don't nobody until something ships, you have no idea in this day and age anymore.
Yeah, that's true. Until it's in my hot little hands and whoever calls me.
Like until you receive like a tracking number, it doesn't exist in my mind because of how things get canceled, things get moved. Who knows, right?
Yeah, like I have a feeling I hope I'm wrong. I think something's going to happen between now and then, and something's going to get annoying, and we're going to be really pissed. But, we're gaming hobbyists, journalists, enthusiasts, whatever. We exist in this space. And I just want to provide a good and authentic coverage to you. And we'll do our very best. Like for me, it's going to be software, hopefully. And we'll see what I care about, whatever gets offered to us.
Hardware wise, I think, you can glean what you could from like us and other people that did have hands-on at the experience events and to understand what the hardware is going to be like. But where this affects it, it's not so much that people need to review the hardware. That's basically sort of what the experience was. We got to do that. It's that there won't be any reviews for any of the day one games at all from any outlet, from any publisher, because nobody will have hardware till day one.
Yeah,
so
and
it's not
earliest we could promise is like 3 to 5 days earliest.
Yeah, like you can give your first day impressions if you get a day one console. You can give impressions that evening, or do some live streaming with it. But you can't, because Nintendo is very strict about their live streaming before they do copyright takedowns, right? Yeah. So you've got, but where this is going to affect people most is going to be people launching software on their platform that isn't Nintendo, because we already know, Mario Kart's not going to need reviews. It's just going to sell. Kart. But where this affects people is like Square Enix putting out Brave the Default and a few other companies that are putting out Switch day one exclusives. Mm-hmm. That's where it's going to affect people, is like they won't have reviews. So anyway, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. So lots of good stuff we're recording in the future so we can all have a nice summer, and lots of stuff that is being cooked up week to week. It's now me and Alex have a pretty good rhythm to getting things done in terms of weekly show. We're going to have our big Summer Games Fest chats with me and Alex and Ken. I'm actually going to join in this year because I have to. It's a console launch year. I cannot avoid this, but we'll see what I think. And honestly, maybe I'll be impressed. Maybe I will. We'll have to wait and see. So anyway, guys, like I said, please check out our stuff. Do check out our friends' podcasts. Ken does This Anime. David does Do You Even Movie with Enrique. Please check those out. Those guys are wonderful to work with, and it's always a pleasure. And yeah. So anyway, guys, for This Week in Geek, we have been
Alex, the producer.
I've been Mike, the Birdman, saying be excellent to each other. Please go out there and enjoy this lovely weather. I know I am. I'll catch you guys again next time, along with Alex, right here on thisweekingeek.net.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.